No matter whether you got the win or loss in week 3, today is an opportunity to improve your fantasy football team via the waiver wire. Now, here are some key injuries that we need to discuss heading into week number 4. Najee Harris, I mean, man, as soon as you saw the Najee Harris injury, as soon as you saw it, we just all knew, yeah, that's an Achilles. I mean, he's gone. So for Marion Hampton owners, he's taken a big stock up. For Mike Evans, obviously had hamstring injuries last year, and he's dealing with them again as he's aging out. You can see him, walking into the tunnel, throwing his helmet, clearly frustrated. That age makes it only more and more difficult to recover from a hamstring injury. I would anticipate this being a potential IR stint at minimum, which means your Igbukas, your Sterling Shepherds are viable options. Maybe even Cade Otton gets involved. Terry McLaurin suffered the quad injury. Now, it's not really known if he would have come back into that game had it been more competitive, but Jeff Mueller mentions that soft tissue injuries are the biggest concerns for players coming off an extended missed time in camp and preseason. So unfortunately, that's just something he's going to have to deal with. And then CeeDee Lamb, who was used out of the backfield as a running back, did get taken down. It was a pretty rough tackle. His ankle gets kind of twisted up there. He gets stepped on in a way right on his ankle. We're still going to monitor what this looks like throughout the week. Now, CeeDee Lamb himself says that he feels like he can play in week 4, but Jeff Mueller, I feel the same way, very similar to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, they're these dogs that just, they want to be out there, but objectively, the fact that he didn't come back into the game is a very good sign to indicate he's probably not going to play at least next week, if not multiple weeks. So definitely something we need to monitor. All right, if you're in an 8 or a 10 team league, maybe some of these names might be available, but in all of our 12 team leagues, these guys are already rostered. But if there's some, for some reason out there, definitely go pick them up. All right, guys, the only name that is worth dropping all of your fab so far this entire season on the waiver wire, the only name is Trey Benson. Now, to be clear, in all of the leagues I'm in, he's already rostered. But if you look at the numbers on ESPN, rostered in about 53% of leagues, Sleeper 59%, and Yahoo 50%. So if you're out there in the league that Benson's on the waiver wire, whatever it takes to get Trey Benson, you get him. You unload the entire clip. You put $100 of $100 of fab. If you have 500, you put 500. Whatever you got, you put 100% of your fab on there because he will be the lead back in Arizona. Very talented guy, early 3rd round pick a couple years ago, now ready to step in and be the dude. Trey Benson actually tweeted out, he said, "I got you for life 6, talking to James Conner, I promise," putting his word, kind of making a promise to the city, if you will, making a promise to James Conner. But unfortunately, Adam Scheffler did report that James Conner did in fact suffer a season-ending injury to his right ankle that's going to require surgery. So obviously the severity of the injury, they're going to find out more, but it is guaranteed that he will miss the entirety of the season. So when you unload your clip, you know you have a starting running back for the rest of the year. Now, we were already seeing kind of a changing of the guard slowly over the first couple weeks where Trey Benson would get more and more involved, specifically on 3rd downs. He already took that 3rd down role from James Conner. But here in week number 3, we have Trey Benson, who had 40% of the snaps, ended up with 13 total touches. Now, it didn't turn into a huge fantasy day just yet, but he will be the guy featured in the air as well as on the ground, 4.1 yards per carry. Every time Amari DiMercado touched the ball, it was not good for this team. So I believe Trey Benson will be the workhorse running back for the Cardinals. That is something that is uber valuable. Trey Benson in week 3, 61% of the snaps. Michael Florio also agreeing, #1 waiver wire pickup. If for some reason he's out there, he shouldn't be. Fix that. Okay, full transparency. If Benson is not available, there's a huge drop off in the waiver wire this week. My second player is Alec Manor. No surprise here. I'm willing to spend about 10 to 20% of my fab. I mean, you can't say we didn't tell you he was worth a pickup before week 2. Even before week 2, he was one of our favorite stashes. Make sure you're subscribed so you watch that stash video each and every week. People are beating the waiver wire all the time on our channel. And then just last week, he was tied for our #1 pickup off the waiver wire as well. And plenty of people told you, it's not worth it. Don't pick him up. Why? You guys are rostering Calvin Ridley. I mean, let's look at week number 3. Alec Manor, Calvin Ridley. Yes, Calvin gets the majority of the snaps, but routes run, they're right beside each other. Target share, they're right beside each other. And that's not a surprise. That's been the case the entire year. That was the case in weeks 1, 2, and of course now in week number 3. From a snap percentage, a routes run, a target share, it has been neck and neck. The difference being Alec actually does something with the targets that he receives. 13.8 fantasy points this week, 4 of those catches, 38 yards, and a touchdown. Back-to-back touchdowns in weeks 2 and 3. And meanwhile, Calvin Ridley, there's just no chemistry right now with Cam Ward. The chemistry just does not exist. So right now, Alec Manor is a flexible name until he proves us that he's not. So if he's out there, I'd be willing to spend, again, 10 to 20% of my fab because there's a chance that this is a legit breakout in 2025. Okay, so beyond those 2 names, I'm not really willing to go that hard on the waiver wire. In fact, I would encourage you, if you're not getting one of those 2 names, be quite conservative. For example, my next available player that I like is Christian Kirk. I'm willing to spend 10, maybe 15% of my fab on a Christian Kirk. He seems to be the clear number 2 target in Houston. We were wanting to see, while he was away and injured, Jaden Higgins break out or Jalen Knoll get some work, but they refused to allow that to happen. Here in week number 3, Kirk was second amongst wide receivers in snaps, as well as routes run, as well as targets. He had 8 out of 35 targets, 11 to Nico Collins. Now, it didn't really turn into much fantasy success. He only had 5.5 points. They didn't really connect much. But with Christian Kirk's role out of the slot, primarily playing in the slot, there will be a lot more layups. And in PPR formats, he's like a more affordable Wan'Dale Robinson in a way. I know that sounds strange, but he will definitely have good fantasy weeks in the future. So definitely, if you're looking for a flex and you lost somebody to injury this week, he can be someone that you can stick right into your lineup as your last flex option here in week number 4. Player 3B, which was another name that we have talked about on our stash video, both last week and the week before that, is Woody Marks. I'm willing to spend about 5 to 15% of my fab. I will be honest with you guys, pretty much all the other names beyond Woody Marks right now are stash options. They're not guys that you pick up and you start straight away. Don't waste your fab if it's not the names. Like, don't just put your fab on names because you have fab. Save it for a rainy day. A rainy day is a Trey Benson. A rainy day is an Alec Manor. But I do like Woody Marks. Now, you have to remember that the Texans traded a 3rd-round pick in next year's draft to acquire him this year. He set big records at Mississippi State, including records for receptions, 214 with that college, 257 total receptions because he had that last year at USC. He ran 85% of his snaps. He ran a receiving route. The dude is an absolute weapon out of the backfield, and he has been slowly but surely chipping away at this role. In week 1, 12% of the snaps. In week 2, 28% of the snaps. And then this week, 40% of the snaps, right down the middle with Nick Chubb pretty much, 30 to 33 snaps. He had a total 8 total touches. Obviously, some of that through the air. He was incredibly effective with his opportunities. Meanwhile, every time we see Nick Chubb, there's not much efficiency. He's not really suited to this offense, especially an offense that is one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. You would much rather emulate the run game through the air, and Woody Marks is the running back to do that. So again, this is more of a stash, but long term, I mean, if he's already gone from 12 to 28 to 40%, if he's already made names like Adare Gumbawale completely irrelevant, like Adare Gumbawale is not even in this rotation anymore because Woody Marks has made him irrelevant. What could he be in the next couple weeks? You need to stash him to find out. All right, my 5th option is Chris Rodriguez and Jeremy McNichols. Now, this is a bit of a strange game, okay? We all expect, at least I expected, Bill Krosky-Merritt to come out as a starter. In the first 2 weeks with the healthy Austin Eckler, what we saw was in the first 2 drives, there was no Bill Krosky-Merritt at all. Now, we thought in week 3 that would probably change because they had to activate Chris Rodriguez, who was inactive the first 2 weeks as a healthy scratch, but it did not change. In the first 2 drives, still there was no Bill Krosky-Merritt. However, after those first 2 drives, we did see a good dose of Bill Krosky-Merritt, so they could just still be trying to work Bill Krosky into the rotation. However, we did see Chris Rodriguez lead this team in rushing attempts with 11. JCM led the way with snaps with 23. Jeremy McNichols was involved. Now, I don't think Jeremy McNichols has real inherent value. Yes, he had the 70-yard touchdown or whatever it was, 60-yard touchdown, but he's not going to repeat that each and every week. He is their satellite back. He will be used in situations where this team is down in games. So be very cautious going all in on Jeremy McNichols. He's a great sell high if you can. But unfortunately, it does look like, at least for now, Chris Rodriguez Jr. is going to be involved in this rotation. It's a true 3-way and not one that you want to be a part of. But if you want to stash Rodriguez or McNichols, it's worth stashing at this point, right? Okay, the next group is a bunch of receivers that I don't want you to spend heavy fab on, but they're worth picking up if you can get them anywhere 1 to 5 to 7% of your fab at most. So for example, Trey Tucker. I would be very cautious going all out on Trey Tucker. I don't imagine anyone's going to tell you to like spend a high amount of your fab on him. Back-to-back weeks over 8 targets, that's great. But a 40 bomb here in week number 3 is 3 touchdowns. He's never going to have a game in his career again with 3 touchdowns. So I think this is difficult to chase, especially with all the weapons there, like Bowers, who should get more involved, Jacoby, who should get more involved. I'd be very cautious to go all out on Trey Tucker. They love Deontay Thornton. So I think this is a little bit of fool's gold. Only go after him if no one else is interested. Torrey Horton, who was on our stash video this week, comes out here and actually returns a kick for a touchdown and then scores a touchdown through the air. 4 targets. And if you look at the Seattle wide receiver room, you can see Torrey Horton is right on Cooper Kupp's heels. I mean, the same amount of snaps as JSN, the same amount of routes run. He had 4 targets compared to just 2 for Cooper Kupp. So he is eating away at that role. I would argue that Torrey Horton has more long-term upside than even a name, you know, like a Trey Tucker. So he's worth a stash. Sterling Shepard, we have to talk about because obviously if Mike Evans goes down, someone has to take his place. I think Cade Otton is worth mentioning. Sterling Shepard just has that inbuilt chemistry with Baker Mayfield back from their days at Oklahoma. Malik Washington, this team is 0-3. When do they fire Mike McDaniel? And does that mean that they're going to ship off Tyreek Hill? Because Malik Washington is worth the stash at that point. Jalen Tolbert, how long will CeeDee Lamb be out? Jalen Tolbert gets 6 targets this week, his season high. That could continue as long as CeeDee Lamb is not on the field. He could be relevant. And then Parker Washington. I'd be cautious chasing these 11 targets. We've seen this from Parker Washington throughout his career. Jamie Brown did go down with the injury, so he could have a role, but be very cautious going quote-unquote all in on him. Now look, the NFL season is just chaos every single week. Players getting injured, traded, cut. News is constantly changing, so the 2025 season pass is a must-have for your fantasy football season. It's a $34 one-time purchase. When you use my promo code LAND, you can check out the pinned comment. It's about $2.60 per week for the end of the season, and you get unlimited access to my rankings, both weekly and rest of season rankings. As soon as I hit submit, you know exactly my thoughts. You get access to all the premium tools on the site, some vouchers to come on our live stream and ask me questions as well, so check that out in the pinned comment. Okay, let's talk about Isaiah Likely quickly. This is just betting against Mark Andrews, really. Mark Andrews has been completely inefficient for really the entire season, but even going back to parts of last year. But here in week number 2, Monday Night Football is going to happen here soon, so he can make me eat my words, I'm aware, but he hasn't had a single game over 2 points. Hopefully he has it's the highest over-under on Monday Night Football. Hopefully he goes over 2 points on Monday Night Football. But the point is, I do believe there could be a bigger role for Likely than people are anticipating. How about Brenton Strange, who actually comes out here in week number 2 and ends up being second on the team in targets? What we're seeing with Travis Hunter is he has a bigger role on defense than any of us anticipated. So right now, Brenton Strange is actually a critical part of this offense. He had 7 targets and he caught 6 of them for 61 yards, 12 points. I guarantee you 70% of the people watching this video, if I told you can lock and load 12 points into your roster every week from the tight end spot, you would take it and you would be very grateful. So that's kind of what you're looking at, a potential guy who can be a starter for you. Okay, let's look at week 4 defensive streamers. If you want to plan ahead, here are some of my favorite defensive pickups. Names like the Broncos going up against the Bengals. It looked terrible last week for Cincinnati. How about the Chargers going up against the Giants? The Texans versus the Titans. The Bills versus the Saints. Saints got destroyed this week. And the Commanders at the Falcons. Man, Michael Penix, it looks rough, doesn't it? Okay, here is a shout out to people in deeper leagues. My 14, 16, 32 team leagues. Here are some deep league stashes. Names like Blake Corum, who's the clear handcuff. You're stashing him basically to do what Trey Benson did, right? Miles Sanders, same thing. Kyle Monangai, same thing. Ollie Gordon, same thing. Now, Hassan Haskins gets some inbuilt value because of Najee Harris's injury. I do think they're going to lean on Hampton. I don't think Haskins has any real value, but he is technically the handcuff. Luther Burden, I don't have him higher on this video just because there's so many weapons to feed in that offense. You're not going to face the Dallas Cowboys defense every week. I love Burden the player, obsessed with him, but I don't know that you can rely on him this week. Tyquan Thornton, he keeps being the Xavier Worthy for the Chiefs. DeAndre Hopkins has a role there in Baltimore, and Oronde Gadsden actually has a pretty interesting role in LA as well with the injuries to their tight end room. But guys, I appreciate you watching the video. Do me a favor, hit the like button to show some love. Subscribe if you like the content, and please comment down below if you think that there is a better waiver wire pick out there. Let the people know. Draft with me every night this week on the FastDraft app, where there are thousands of dollars to be won weekly. Getting started is easy. Download the FastDraft app, use the promo code LAND at signup to get your deposit match up to $50. That's up to 10 free entries on us. And when you finish your first DFS contest, I'll send you my weekly rankings completely free. Check out the link in the pinned comment to start drafting today.